bhgtv. Another, Bethel House of God Ministry. Thank you for tuning into Bethel, bhgtv. Like, share, and subscribe. Now our host, Pastor Johnson.
All right, greetings, my brothers and sisters. Thank you for tuning in tonight. This is a special report that we're going to be bringing you all tonight. As you know, we're coming up on Black History Month. Just want to share with you before we get into our special report tonight what's going to be taking place in the month of February. Every Sabbath, starting the first Sabbath in February, going for the 5 consecutive weeks, we will be simulcasting a lesson, a series that will be presented live on this channel from the Israel of God, and it's the 5-part series lessons. Now, on those lessons, you want to invite people who you are trying to share information with into your home or whatever place that you're comfortable with, that you feel COVID-free. I encourage you to provide snacks for them, have them have their paper, their pencil, their Bible, and come take notes, because that's going to be a very interesting 5-week series, and it is a must-see series. This is a course. This is a class, and you will be going through this 5-week course class for 5 weeks. It's going to be very important. Now, we're going to be coming to you with a segment every Saturday night, starting tonight, special report titled The Black Jews, the history of the Black Jews. And this is going to be a special report with different segments of information. Tonight, we have a 3-part series that we're going to be bringing with music here and there in between. No doubt you will enjoy this, and I'm going to get out of the way. I just want to let you know what's going to be taking place, and I want to thank all of you all for supporting this channel. If you're not a supporter and like to support this ministry, you can do so by those platforms right there. All of them are bhgtv.online. There's Patreon // donate. There's our Cash App. There's our 800 number, 1-833-423-8435, and our email address. Now, we may come back in between these and just come in and just check up on everybody to see how everybody's doing. I will be right here in the studio, right here with you, watching this 3-part lesson tonight. It's going to be Saturday night. We're going to be letting it roll, and we're going to be doing this, brothers and sisters. So that being said, I'm going to get out of the way. These lessons are going to be brought by Brother Benaiah Israel. Brother Benaiah Israel and I have done a few conferences together out of state and in this state. And of course, when COVID is over, we plan to do others where we will be taking information on the road. He's going to be bringing out the history, and I'm going to be bringing out the information on feast days, how to keep the feast days, and what do the feast days mean relevant to being the plan to salvation. So enjoy this, and I'm very excited about what we're going to see tonight. And I am certain that you will enjoy yourselves tonight. So that being said, brothers and sisters, I am going to get out of the way and let this thing take place right now. I hope that you enjoy it and everything that you're about to see. God bless you. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with you later in between these, somewhere between all of this is over. Peace and blessings to you. I'll be in the chat room.
Thank you for tuning into Bethel, BHGTV. Like, share, and subscribe. Now our host, Pastor Johnson.
Well, it's not supposed to be me again. I'm looking for Brother Benaiah. Just give me a minute. I had him here someplace. And I want to say too, while we're there, our moderators in the room. I see Sister Coach, she's in the room. I think Queen Cleo's in the room. Those are our moderators. So they'll be with you throughout the night as well, okay? All right, Brother Benaiah Israel, enjoy.
Shalom, family. This is Benaiah Ben Israel, bringing you a presentation on Black history. The name of this presentation is Black History, the Inquisition. That's Black History, the Inquisition. Now, you may be surprised to know, or you may be wondering, why would we associate the Inquisition with Black history? Well, believe it or not, the Inquisition has had a great impact on Black history. And so what I'm going to do in this presentation, we're going to try to keep it short and sweet. I'm only going to review 8 references. So in this presentation, is the wish is that you don't hear my words, but you hear the references of the authors that were around 100 or so years ago. So with these references, I don't like to use references that are from the 1900s or newer. So basically, whenever you open up a book and you see that that publication date in there, I like to use publication dates, or books with publication dates of like the 1800s or older, because those books tend to have a lot of truth in them. So let's go ahead and get started. Don't want to delay too long. So what we'll do is we're going to do a couple of things. One is we'll just read just a few references as to the color of the Jews, and then we'll get rolling into the other references. I do have some follow-up presentations on the color of the Jews. I may put 20 or so references together just to kind of put the nail in the coffin as far as that conversation is concerned. But for this presentation, we're only going to do 3. And hopefully these are 3 references that you haven't seen before. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm in a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to exit out of that and just take you to one of the first references. So this reference comes from a book called The Negro in the New World by Sir Harry Johnston. And for some of these, I may not read out the reference there, but you will be able to see it on the screen. And if you want to see if you can find these references yourself, feel free to pause and write that information down, and then you can kind of proceed. So this one comes from, again, Negro in the New World. And we're going to go to page 27. And again, the point of this reference is just to establish the color of the Jews. So we're going to look at the color of the Jews. All right, my screen's a bit choppy here, so just bear with me. It takes a while for my screen to redraw because I have a lot of things running in the background. So we'll get there soon enough. All right, almost there, just a couple of pages away. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in, because on this page in particular, we want to go to page 27, and then we want to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're going to read the footnote on this page. So I'm going to go into, let's see if I can zoom into 135%. And then I'm going to scroll over here, so hang on. All right, almost there. All right, I'm going to read this one twice just so that you understand what we're reading. All right, so this footnote, it's at the very bottom, and you can follow along while we read, but it basically says the Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica, and I know I'm going to mess up this name, but we're going to look at it, Guana, reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. All right, let me read that again. The Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and the proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica and Ghana reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. All right. So this kind of just gets us started in linking the Negroes, or the so-called African Americans, to being the Jews. So let's take another look at another reference. Now, for this one, I'm going to go to my web browser, because some of these references I have digital copies, and some of them are hard copies. Some of the books are hard to get to. They're rare books. They cost upwards of I've seen some of these books at around $50,000. Actually, 58 was the highest I've seen them, or $11,000. So don't be surprised if you go out there and you try to find them and you see some just crazy prices associated with these references. And it has to do with, they're just, the powers to be just kind of want to keep some of these books out of mainstream. But actually that works in our advantage, because, folks like me that like to do research, when we go to these websites for books on like things like Africa or Jews or stuff like that. Basically what I do, just to kind of give you some insight, I will go to these websites, and then I'll perform the search, and then I'll sort the search by price. And I'll put the most expensive books at the top, and the cheapest ones at the bottom. And usually the ones that are the expensive books that show up at the top are the ones that aren't meant for mainstream. Like, those are the ones that have the big price tags that whoever, is out there, they don't want that to fall into the hands of people that are doing research. So, but again, that works in our advantage. All right, so for our next one, let's see here. Oh, okay, all right. So this one's called On the Classification and Geographical Distribution of Mammalia. All right, so I'm on page, for this one, we're going to page 96, but I will, let me go back to the front of the book so that you can see the actual cover of this book here. All right, so kind of zoomed in, but you can see the title there. So that's the title, and that's the author of this book. So I'm going to jump to page 96. And there's page 96. It's on the left. And let's look for our reference. All right, so now on this one, and then let me zoom in on this one as well. There we go. All right. Now, the reference that we're looking for in this one is the last paragraph on this page. And let's see here. I may just start midway here where it says for. But, yeah, well, I guess we can read the whole thing. It says, with reference to the characteristic of color, which are extreme, we have now opportunities of knowing how much that character is the result of the influence of climate. So back in the day, they used to think that climate would have decide whether or not you were black or white, but that's just the way it was. It says, we know it more particularly by the most valuable mode of testing such influences which we derive from the peculiarity of the Jewish race. It says, for 1,800 years, that race has been dispersed in different latitudes and climates, and they have preserved themselves distinct from intermixture with other races of mankind. It says, there are some Jews still lingering in the valleys of the Jordan, having been oppressed by and let me move over to the other page, top of the page here. Successive conquerors of Syria for ages, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Let me read that one again. And I'm just going to start up here where it says, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Just for context, I'm going to keep reading. It says, others of the Jewish people participating in European civilization and dwelling in the northern nations show instances. You know what an instance, if you're black but you have instances of white, you know, that's, you have, those are considered exceptions. But let me start again here. It says, others of the Jewish people participating in European civilization and dwelling in the northern nations show instances of the light complexion, the blue eyes, and the light hair of the Scandinavian families. So I'm just going to stop there. It goes into, you know, climate and stuff like that, but it does, well, actually, there's a little nugget of information here at the end where it says the condition of the Hebrews since their dispersion has not been such as to admit much admixture by the proselytism of household slaves. We are thus led to account for the differences in color by the influence of climate without having to refer them to original or specific distinctions. In other words, without having to say which ones are original and which ones are, you know, are the add-ons, so to speak, or the proselytes. But I have a couple of references that should help clear that up too. So let's take a look. All right, so you got that one. That's our second reference. So for the third reference, this is also one that you can find on the web. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. It's the Christian Researches in Asia by Claudius Buchanan. And so you should be able to see that on the left-hand screen. If not, let me see if I can zoom in here. Actually, so I'm on page, for this one, the references is on page 205, and I'm going to scroll up to the front page so that you can see the book. All right, so see the title. All right, so that's the title. I'm going to scroll down and see if you can get the author. All right, that's the author, the Reverend Claudius Buchanan. And again, let's look at that publication date. You see it? 1811. So this is a book that was around 1811. And the other two books were also written in the 1800s too. I forgot to show that. All right, so I'm going to go down to, let's see, so we're at page 205. I'm so I can find my place again. Let's see, 164. Hang on, guys. 192. All right, getting close. And all right, there it is. All right, 205. All right. So what's so special about this this quote? Well, let's go to page 205, and then we'll scroll down to halfway down the page to Black Jews. Black Jews. All right, I'm going to read quite a bit of this. I think this is only a page here. I have some notes here off the side, but let's get started. If we have to stop, we can stop. All right, so Black Jews, it says, it is only necessary to look at the countenance of the black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many, many ages before the white Jews. I think I need to read that one again. All right. It is only necessary to look at the countenance of the black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. Now, if you're familiar with history with John Hyrcanus and the conversion of the Edomites, that will help shed some light on the differences between the white Jews and the black Jews, that sort of thing. Because during the forget the date. It's like 160 something BC. The Jews forcefully they converted the Edomites over to Jews, and from that point forward, according to Josephus, the Edomite Jews were also considered Jews. So that's why whenever you're researching these books, you'll see two classes of Jews. You'll see, white Jews, or sometimes they're called red Jews, and then you have black Jews. So the black Jews are considered the ancient Jews, and the red Jews are either the proselytes or the new Jews. So let's keep going. I'm gonna start back at the top here. I'll try not to I try to leave the commentary at a minimum, but just want you to know why certain things say what it says. So anyway, black Jews. It is only necessary to look at the countenance of the black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. Their Hindu complexion and their very imperfect resemblance to the European Jews, so notice it says the European Jews, indicate that they have been detached from the parent stock in Judea many ages before the Jews in the West, and that there have been intermarriages with families not Israelitish. I had heard that those tribes which had passed in Indus have assimilated so much that the customs and habits of the countries in which they live, that they may be sometimes seen by a traveler without being recognized as Jews. In the interior towns of Malabar, I was not always able to distinguish between the Jew from the Hindu. I hence perceived how easy it may be to mistake the tribes of Jewish descent among the Afghans and other nations in the southern parts of Hindustan. The white Jews look upon the black Jews as an inferior race and as not of a pure caste, which plainly demonstrates that they do not spring from a common stock in in India. Let me just scroll down here. I think there's one or two interesting lines out of this. All right, yeah, we'll leave that one be for now. So the main part there is that there's some discussion about the black Jews. Of course, there's some discourse between the black Jews and the white Jews, but the black Jews are considered like the ancient Jews. They have been there longer, and that's kind of called out in the text here as well. Okay, all right. So that's that. So I did want to just kind of pull out those three references that kind of speaks to the color of the Jews. And for our next reference, we're going to move into or get into the Inquisition. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slide. We're going to jump to slide 3. And so as far as the Inquisition, if you're familiar with the transatlantic slave trade, one of the things that I like to make sure that people are aware of is that the part that the Pope at the time had played in slavery. So for this, I'm just going to zoom in here and just read a quick reference. This is from a book called Historical Survey of the Island of St. Domingo. And this comes from off of page 220. And it reads, "A curious circumstance was, however, omitted. When the Portuguese first began the traffic in Negroes, application was made to the Pope to sanctify the trade by a bull, which His Holiness issued accordingly. In consequence of this permission and authority, a very considerable slave market was started at Lisbon, insomuch about the year 1539, from 10 to 12,000 Negroes were sold there annually." So basically, the papal bull that the Pope signed kicked off slavery in that region, or kicked off the transatlantic slave trade. And so what I want to do is just go over to the third slide here. Let's see, and we'll read just a quick blurb about the Inquisition in Spain and Portugal, just to give you an idea of what was happening in Spain at the time. So let's read this. This comes from you can see the book there. It's by Frederick David Mokata. It's the book the Jews of Spain and Portugal and the Inquisition, page 57. And I'm going to read it, the first paragraph here. It says, unfortunately, at the time of the expulsion, the plague was raging in Castile. So in Portugal, and just a quick note here. So what's happening is that the Jews in Portugal were told to get out. It said that you guys got to leave. And so throughout Europe, there were a bunch of what we refer to as expulsion edicts, declarations to, for the Jews, these black Jews to get out. So this is kind of where that this reference picks up. But I'm reading this reference to set up the next one. So let's go ahead and read this one. It says, unfortunately, at the time of the expulsion, the plague was raging in Castile, and the fugitives brought with them the disease, propagating it wherever they went, and not unnaturally causing their advent to be viewed with loathing and horror. Break here. All right, so what's happening is that the Jews, the plague was raging in Castile. So, of course, the name of the plague associated with the Jews is called what? The Black Death, again. And, people didn't want the Jews around because they were the plague was spreading, through the Jews. And that's foretold in the Bible that that those plagues would cleave to the Jews and follow the Jews. So as we read here, it says, this circumstance induced King John, excuse me, induced King John, take a sip of my tea here. All right. This circumstance induced King John to hasten their departure from Portugal, for which purpose ships were duly provided. So the king said, get out, and I'll provide you some ships to get out. But then some shady stuff went down with the ships too, but it's not covered in this one. And keep reading. It says, this circumstance induced King John to hasten their departure from Portugal, for which purpose ships were duly provided, according to the agreement. But such was the temper of the captains and the sailors that they subjected the Jews to the hardest possible conditions. They plundered them of their goods and valuables, even to their very clothes, taking the shirts off their back, basically. And landed them naked and bare of everything on barren points of the African coast. So they took up everything they had, everything they owned, and left them stranded on the African coast. And then it says, leaving them to die of starvation or to be sold into slavery to the Moors. Nor was this all. The king, and that's King John, wrested from their parents all the children between the ages of 3 and 10. And just to pause here, it says it's 10 in this reference. In other references, you'll see that the king at that time changed it. He increased it to I believe it was like 3 and 16. We'll actually read it here shortly, if I remember. And then later he increased it to include the Jewish children or young adults in the 20s. So it was basically all the young folks. All right, so back to the reference. It says, nor was this all. The king wrested from their parents all the children between the ages of 3 and 10 of those Jewish immigrants who from poverty or otherwise had omitted to pay the capitation tax on entry. So when the Jews came into Portugal, they charged them a tax. Think of it as a toll booth. So as the Jews were coming in, they put that toll booth down. They said, you guys got to pay me. And if you can't pay me, I'm taking your kids. And it says, and so the ones that they couldn't pay the capitation tax, they had their children taken away from them. It says, or the ones that were forced to remain in Portugal, because when King John gave that declaration for the Jews to get out, he said set a date that if they didn't get out by that time, that they would be arrested or enslaved. And let's see what happened to them. So the ones that had omitted to pay the capitation tax on entering, or those who were forced to remain in Portugal, and they had them transported, they had them sent to the newly discovered islands of St. Thomas. So he took the Jews to St. Thomas, which then swarmed with alligators and other beasts of prey, to be brought up as Christians. And so just keep in mind that with this reference, so this reference tells us that the children of the Jews and the Jew, we know that there were women and men in there as well, but for the most part, there were the children that were taken from the Jews in Portugal and Spain, and that they were sent, according to this particular reference, they were sent to St. Thomas. But we have some other references that'll show you exactly where they were sent in addition to St. Thomas, which is on the west coast of Africa. All right, so we're going to exit out of this presentation. So now we've learned that during the time of the Inquisition, and this was just one of the expulsion edicts, that the Jews were sent to the west coast of Africa, in particular St. Thomas Island. All right, so for our next reference, now this is what I call a high value reference, and the reason why I call it that is because of the time period that this reference comes from and the person who it comes from. So this particular reference comes from a author called John Ogilvy, and I'm going to see if I can get to the title screen so you can see the author and the title. About John Ogilvy, he was the cosmographer and printer to the king, and I believe it was King Charles II. So John Ogilvy would be a person of interest. We would want to know what John Ogilvy would have to say, because he would be someone that would have the ear of the king at the time. And we know that that London, that they played a major role in the transatlantic slave trade. So for this one, for this reference, I believe the reference for this guy is way back. There's actually some really good material in here, but we're going to go to one that's all the way in the back of the book. So if you can, well, let me zoom in just so that you can see the title, if you can't already see it. So let me do that first. And my screen's still rendering. All right. So this is the book that we're going to take a look at. This too is one of those rare books that is hard to get a hold of. There used to be digital copies out there floating on archive.org, but they pulled those copies. So you have to kind of poke around to see if you can get it. Yeah, I will, and I'll put some links out there for them. But let me zoom back out, and I'm going to go over to page. Let's see here. We're going to do page, I believe it's 575. And let's see if it renders. All right. Yep. So actually, page 574. I think that's the interesting paragraph. So on page 574, this is just kind of give you some background. This is talking about King John again. So this is about King John. This is about discussing Portugal and west coast of Africa, and the people that were there. So this interesting gives a really good description as to who's on the west coast of Africa and who put them there. I'll say that again. This reference is a good reference that shows us who's on the west coast of Africa and who put them there. So halfway down on the page, and it's one of those books, like if you can get your hands on a digital copy, feel free to read the whole thing for context. But these couple of paragraphs pretty much sum up the whole west coast of Africa. And it says, the Portuguese that dwelt on this island that's St. Thomas, informed the Netherlanders, the Dutch, that few lived above 50 years there. Yet, notwithstanding the great gain tempted them to tarry. So there was money to be had. So, the Netherlanders wanted to go anyway. So, but the Portuguese kind of warned us. They told them that, on this island, we don't live long. And basically, the Europeans didn't live long in Africa when they went there at the time because of the weather and the plagues and all that stuff. So let's read it again. It says, the Portuguese that dwelt on this island informed the Netherlanders that few lived there above 50 years there. Yet, notwithstanding the great gain, tempted them to tarry. So there's money to be had. It says, several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills. And we have a semicolon, and it says, it's going to explain it. It says that John III, King of Portugal, that we just read about, right, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So 200 years before the writing of this book was written in 1670, I think. So 200 years before that book, King John, who was around in the 1400s, he sent a colony there, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed. So the first colony that he sent there, it killed him. It said, yet the place was not left desolate, so they did not all die. It said, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea. Now, if you have a map of Guinea, Guinea is the west coast of Africa. All right. So these people, so the king sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, and this is in the 1400s. Next, in Angola, if you're familiar with the continent of Africa, Angola is just below Nigeria. You got Congo, then you got Nigeria, so that whole area. And lastly, on the island of St. Thomas. So remember, we read about St. Thomas on our previous reference. If you don't remember, just feel free to back up the presentation. But I'm going to read it again without stopping here. Hang on. All right. That John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before, whom the unwholesome air destroyed. Yet the place was not left desolate. For he sent new inhabitants, who first settled Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas. So this tells us that the King John sent a colony to those three places, which was the west coast of Africa. And let's read what John Ogilvy has to say about it. So he says, let's see, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, that so they might be better used to the air, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves. Let me repeat. So, King John is, the king of Portugal, and we read I think it was either 2 or 3 references back that, the king of Portugal petitioned the Pope for slavery, right? So the Pope issued that papal bull, authorized it, things kicked off. And you may be wondering, why would a Pope authorize the Negro slave trade? Well, it looks like we have our answer here. So if we read this again, it says, I'm just going to back up a little bit just so that we get the proper context. It says that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So back in the 1400s, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, West Africa. So they might be better used to the air, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. Let me read that again. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. So now you know why the Pope at the time authorized the transatlantic slave trade. Let's keep reading. And caused their children to be baptized. And we read about the children in the previous reference. And caused their children to be baptized, from whom, coming thither to that place, the west coast of Africa, in great numbers. You got to read this one slow. It says, coming thither in great numbers. Then it says, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Let me read that one again. It says, from whom, coming thither in great numbers, west coast of Africa, the Jews coming there in great numbers, who were, according to this, were sold as slaves. He said most of the present inhabitants there were descended. So now you can understand why this book wouldn't be out there on mainstream, right? Because this reference is pretty damaging. There's some other text in this book as well, but that's pretty much your transatlantic slave trade in a nutshell. But we're not done. But wait, there's more. All right, so we're going to leave this reference and go over to our next reference because we want to get some more understanding about the transatlantic slave trade and these now reading this this reference, now we know that there were Jews on the west coast of Africa, and we also know who put them there, and we know who sold them as slaves, and we know that Portugal was one of the first countries to participate in the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, all right. So for this next next reference, this is also a reference from John Ogilvy, but this book is called Africa, being an accurate description of the regions. So I have it up on the screen. I'm going to zoom in just so that you can see the title. And this too is a digital copy. And I'm going to zoom back out so that I can navigate the pages. And I believe there's a couple of pages of interest in here, but the one that I want is 34. We got a graphic there. Let me just keep going. There it is. All right. So page 34. All right. So page 34. I'm just going to start at the top of page 34 and read down. And this book confirms who are on the west coast of Africa. Okay. All right. It reads, many Jews also are scattered over this region. Some natives, boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger. Now, you may be looking at the screen and wondering why I'm not pronouncing that Niger. That's because back in the day, it wasn't called Niger. That's a relatively modern pronunciation of it. It was actually called nigger. And that's where the word nigger, the derogatory term, comes from in the States, and that's because of the slaves that were gathered from the river Niger Delta. So this tells us who the niggers are, according to the people around during that time. So let's read. It says, let me start again. It says, many Jews also are scattered over this region. So there's not a whole lot of interpretation that we need around that. So we know a lot of Jews were scattered over this region. It says, some natives boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger. Others are Asian strangers who fled thither either from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespasian, or from Judea, wasted and depopulated by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians. So basically, all the Jews fled from these different places and came to the west coast of Africa, is what John Ogilvy is writing here. Who, let me just remind you, he's the cosmographer and geographic printer of the king. So this isn't just some guy, right? This is what we refer to as a high value reference. All right. Or else such as came out of Europe. And I need to read that again. Or else such as came out of Europe, whence they were banished. Because what a lot of people don't know is that the Jews were banished out of the European countries. So all this talk about the Jews going up and living happily in Europe, that's kind of a half truth. Maybe for the Edomite Jews they could pull that off, but for the real Jews were banished out of Europe. All right, so or else such came out of Europe, whence they were banished, out of some parts of Italy in 1342, out of Spain in the year 1462, out of the Low Countries in 1350, out of France in 1403, out of England in 1422. These all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes, having no dominion, though both wealthy and numerous. So let me just stop here, just to kind of review what we've read so far. So this quote tells us that many Jews were on the west coast of Africa. They were in the Niger River region, and also that the Jews that were in the west coast of Africa were not only just the ones that were placed there by the Portuguese, but they were also the Jews that fled from all these various places, like from Jerusalem, from the Romans, from the Persians, from the Christians, and so forth. So this is kind of like a gathering place for the Jews, so to speak. All right. Let's keep reading. It says, these all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes, having no dominion, though both wealthy and numerous, but despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to be Mohammedans, unless first baptized, and then no otherwise made use of than to receive their customs and to gather their taxes. So basically, it's just saying that that these Jews were despised out of all the nations, and here they were sitting on the west coast of Africa, and the Mohammedans, used them just to gather their taxes, but the European nations sent them into slavery, according to John Ogilvy. Okay, all right, so we got that. Let me see if there's another reference we want to share. All right, so we read this quote here. The Jews of Spain and Portugal. And this one, when we read this one, we read that the King of Portugal expelled the Jews from his country, took the children away, and this quote says that he took them to St. Thomas Island. John Ogilvy then goes on to say that they not only took the Jews to St. Thomas, but they took them to Guinea and Angola as well. And this next quote comes from, let's see, you can see the book. There's Portuguese exploration to the west and the formation of Brazil. But this is another high value reference. So this reference comes from, and I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Garcia de Resende. And this guy is the official chronicler of King John. All right, so he's the chronicler of the king. So let's see if Garcia de Resende says anything different than what John Ogilvy, who's the cosmographer of the king. So it's going to read a little down from the top here. It says, by the year 1470, the Portuguese had found the equatorial islands of St. Thomas in the Guinean coast, off the African coast. The climate proved to be extremely unwholesome for Europeans, and settlement was slow. So basically, he's affirming what we read in some of our other references, which just said that the Europeans didn't live long when they went to the west coast of Africa. It goes on to say the official chronicler of King John, that's John right there, Garcia de Resende, reports on one of the methods to populate this island that also throws some light on the tragic form of Jewish participation in the Portuguese Atlantic Empire. It says the king had allowed Jewish refugees from Spain from where they had been expelled. Let me read that again. It says the king had allowed Jewish refugees from Spain from where they had been expelled to remain in Portugal only in return for payment of an enormous ransom. We read that in a different reference as well. It says in 1493, those who could not pay had their children taken away from them, baptized by force, and deported to St. Thomas in order to be raised as Christians and to help populate the island that the king had just leased. And I'm just going to skip to the last sentence here. And it says, nothing is known of their further fate, although later chroniclers attribute the thriving sugar production on the island to the talents of these deported children and their offspring. So this one, this reference tells us that the Portuguese sent the children, or took the children away from the Jews, baptized them by force, and put them into slavery. Basically, is what it's saying. All right, and this is just another just a side note here, just to kind of show you that a description of the Portuguese community. So the very last sentence on this page, I don't have a page number. I'll try to get you that page. I'll get you that page number, and it says, the documents also describe the evolution of the black Portuguese communities in Guinea and the islands, as well as the slave trade and the way it was organized, understood, and justified. So just wanted to call this out to show you that the communities were black communities. All right. Hopefully you can see the name of this book. This is another digital book. You can see it on the left. As you can see, it's a free book on Google Books. And this quote comes from page 218. I'll give you a chance to take a look at that. Now, this particular reference speaks to those that were convicted by the Inquisition. This is referring to the west coast of Africa. If you start at the top of the page, kind of cut off some of that, but if you start at the top of the page, you'll see it's referring to the west coast of Africa. And there's a footnote at the bottom of the page to show you the countries that it's referring to on the west coast of Africa. But I'll read here the last couple of sentences at the bottom. It says, moreover, in Spain, they but seldom put their malefactors, the word malefactors means criminals. So I'll read that and just kind of substitute malefactors. It says, Moreover, in Spain, they but seldom put their criminals to death, as we do in France. They send them all to these desert countries to traffic there. So the word traffic means slavery. So they send them all to these desert countries. What desert countries? Well, you can see the countries listed in the footnote at the bottom. This is basically the Congo, Angola, basically the west coast of Africa. So what this reference tells us is that Spain was sending their criminals, their so-called criminals, their Jews, to the west coast of Africa as for slaves. All right. And interesting tidbit about the Inquisition. So the actual book of the Inquisition that contained like the bylaws and stuff like that. That book had many, nicknames, but one of the nicknames was called the Libro Negro. And that's the book of the Inquisition. It was sometimes called the Libro Negro, or you can see the Libro Necro, the book of the dead. But the Libro Negro is a name for the official book of the Inquisition. Within that book, it showed the crimes and how to conduct the trials and also the sentences. And this is just one of those books that are out there on Amazon, just to show you that it's called the El Libro Negro de la Inquisición, the Black Book of the Inquisition. And this is just another cross reference from St. John of the Cross. It just reads, "Thus the Libro Negro, in which were recorded the acts of the chapters and definitiaries, vanished except for a few extracts." So just saying that the Libro Negro disappeared after a while. It was kind of hard to find. All right, I'm going to skip that one, that reference. Okay, all right. So I'm going to back
Region.
up. So in the Libro Negro, and actually let me exit out of here and go to a web browser because I think I have a better view of this. Hopefully you can see this in your screen. But the name of this book is A Narrative of the Persecution of Hipólito Joseph de Costa, Volume 2. And within this book, it defines some of the sentences that were given out as part of the Inquisition. Like, so basically what the Inquisition was, you had the I call them like the secret police, for the Jews that didn't want to embrace the Roman version of Christianity. They would be arrested, and then by the Inquisition officers, and they would be tortured, and they would try to wrestle a confession from them, and then either burn them at the stake, or they would ship them off somewhere. So the purpose of this reference is to tell us where those that were convicted by the Inquisition. We want to use this reference to tell us where the convicted Jews were sent. So what I just did a quick search here, and it's just to show you the places. So we're just going to run through them really quick, but it says, and she shall be, and this is just kind of reading off the punishments, and she shall be sent to the galleys. And if a female, she shall be exiled to the island of Principe, West Africa, St. Thomas, West Africa, or Angola. And this one is, we kind of catch this one mid-sentence here, but it says, shall be condemned to the same punishment of whipping, and shall be exiled for the same period to the kingdom of Angola or some parts of Brazil. I think this one's mid-sentence too. Let's see, it says, and shall be sent to the galleys or exiled to St. Thomas or Angola. And this one's another one, exiled to the island of Principe, St. Thomas, or Angola. West Africa. Shall be exiled for as many years to Brazil or Angola, and shall be exiled to St. Thomas, Angola, or Brazil. And there's a few more here, and it's pretty much the same thing. You'll see St. Thomas, Angola, or Brazil for a lot of these. So basically, what the Inquisition was doing was that it was sending those Jews that were convicted. It was sending them to the west coast of Africa. So I think we'll stop there for now, and we'll pick this up in another video. But this is we'll end this video. We'll call it part 1, and this is Black History, the Inquisition. Black History, the Inquisition, and hopefully with some of these references, you can begin to see how the Inquisition had a direct impact, mostly, on the so-called African American, which are the true Hebrews, or the true children of Judah, from the house of Judah. So thank you for watching. There will be another video to come. I do have another video coming up on the color of the Jews to kind of put that whole conversation to bed as far as what the Jews look like. We'll kind of ramp up the references on that one, just so that we can kind of squash all the back and forth as far as the color of the Jews. I just want to make sure we leave no question by the time that video ends. So thank you again for watching, and feel free to continue your research, and by all means make these references your own. And with that said, shalom.
that part had ended. And we're going to go No, I'm not gone. I'm here. I didn't know his video had such a dark spot in it that long. So we're going to go to the second one. And that one's coming up right here. Let's see. And here we go. But before we go to there, how did y'all like the first one? How did y'all like that? Was it okay? Was it informative? What do you think about the information? Put that information in the chat room. When you get to old books like this, and old books are giving you information, it's like you can't even challenge. It's unchallengeable. And I'll tell you that. Now, these books, Brother Benea is telling you how much they cost. When Brother Benea first started this, these books were nowhere in that price range at all. Nowhere in that price range. How they got in that price range, I don't know. But they were not in that price range, okay? But it is what it is. Somebody said undeniable. Great information. Yes. So the next one you're going to enjoy as well. I think that you would like it, and it gets a little bit more in depth to the information that's out there. And I'll be right back, and I'm going to be watching this here with you again. But I think you'll like this one as well. So let's get into this one. But before we get there, we're going to get over to this video produced by Minister Michael Norman. Minister Michael Norman was also on road trip with us. And he is a good brother over in the Carolinas. He's been on several conferences with us as well. Good brother, good brother. Y'all check out his new video, and then we're going to be getting into part 2. Check this out.
Deuteronomy 28. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Most High thy power, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Most High God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. But if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of the Most High, to observe and do all his commandments, then curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
All these lies and delusions, wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened, I am awakened.
Israelites seek out the ways of the heathen to make a covenant with Satan's government. Turn their face away from the Most High, evil desire. 2 Kings 17 said they passed their sons and daughters through the fire. They begin cutting divine spiritual ties, clinging to the heathen lies. Evil spirits bind, breaking souls, breaking spirits, ripping flesh, breaking minds. Running from the Most High wrath on the blood-stained path. 70 AD, Israelites fall. The Most High's chosen seed go into captivity. Hebrew Israelites watch nations rise, they watch nations fall. 4 beasts, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. We pray for the fall of the 4th beast. Under the iron foot of Rome, we long to go home. A hopeless nation lies dead in the valley of the dry bones. Simulation of Shemites to Hamite clones. Israelites wrong.
All these lies and delusions, wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am
swine. We eat the worst of the animal kind. Used, confused, they set us in high places to be abused. Control the tribe, control the tribe. Our leaders take bribes to continue the lies. Fourth beast behind the scene in the skies, watching with the all-seeing eye. The heathen take flight into a new world order. Hebrews sleepwalking, sleepwalking into a wicked system that's gonna fall. Awake, awake, reject Babylon. Hear the trumpet of awakening throughout the day and night. Awake, the Most High's people, the Israelites. The earth has swallowed the flood of deception. The harvest ripe for collection. His people are walking, standing like a mighty army. The Most High has summoned, the Hebrews are coming. Awake, come out of captivity. Awake, you who sleep. Arise, receive the Most High's laws and commandments. We are the Israelites.
In my mind, all these lies and delusions. Wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened, I am awakened. Israelite's journey. Clear my mind and my soul. Gave me a new mind. Oh, made me whole. I rise up.
Quam.
I'll be a new light.
Quam.
I am awakened.
Quam.
I am awakened.
Quam. Yes, you are.
I am awakened. All these lies and delusions. Wake me up. Show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened. I am awakened. Israelite's journey.
Man, those were some nice wardrobes that they had in that that video there. I'm gonna have Minister Michael Norman on again to just talk about some of the stuff he's doing out there. Yeah, Israel Lewis, just powerful. Before we get to our next one, I'm just saying shout outs to everybody in the chat room. We got Queen Cleo, we got Coach, our moderators tonight. Just hello to all of y'all. We got Israel, Michael Brown, Mitch Brown. Let's see, make sure I didn't skip anybody. Israel Lewis, Mr. The Original School. Let's see. Carl, how you doing, brother Carl? Just saying hello to everybody in the chat room. Paul, how you doing? Let me just go all the way up here. Ryan, thank you for coming in. We got a lot more coming, folks. Got a lot more coming. Okay. True All Day, how you doing? Thank you for being here. Faith and Hope, thank you for being here. Lady J, thank you for being here. Okay, let's get to this. Yes, you all hit that like button. Brother Landon, thank you for being here. Okay, Dorora, Ryan, thank y'all for being here. Now, we got Daphne. How you doing, Daphne? Dorora, let's see. We got more coming. All right, there's Antoinette from the Facebook side. There's Shanika Jackson. Thank you, Shanika, for being here. Tara, thank you for being here. There's Sister Brooklyn, Leslie Fields. While we're scrolling up and saying hello to everybody, there's Yara Moya. There is Sister Marie, Lady J, all of you all. I think I'm getting everybody. Okay, yes, everybody. Sister Melinda in the chat room. Let's see who else we got. Yahoda Ben Israel, thank you for coming. So the next one, brothers and sisters, as he made mention that these things, these books, these references are very, very expensive. That when Brother Benet and I, when we went to North Carolina, when he had did the first one, his first video, Hidden Hebrews, by the time we got over there, that book had went up $20,000-$30,000. I kid you not, right before our eyes. And I said, Brother Benea, what site did you go to? And he told me, I said, wasn't that book like $5,000? And which I thought it was just crazy in the first jump. That thing was up like $35,000. So that's just how it is. You know, when information is out there and you want to hide it from people, just put the price up on the book and nobody's going to go buy it and get that information. So that's just how they did it. All right, enough of that being said, check out this second lesson and we got a lot to come. Just on standby. Peace and blessings. Sure you let everybody know. bhgtv, special report, the Black Jews.
All right. Shalom, shalom. Hey, family, it's Benea Ben Israel. We are returning for our second installment of Black History, the Inquisition. And so this is part 2 of Black History, the Inquisition. So what we're going to do is a couple of things. One is we're going to do a quick review of the first video. And not necessarily a quick review, but, well, I guess it is a quick review. But I just want to point out some things that we didn't necessarily point out in the first video. And then after that, of course, we'll get rolling into our second series of references. Because what we like to do is just simply read reference. We may give a bit of commentary over the top on top of that, but other than that, at the end of the day, it's reading references. Okay? All right, so with that being said, I do want to give a bit of a backdrop for for this video. So I'd like to start off with Deuteronomy 28, and if most of you aren't familiar with Deuteronomy 28, it basically outlines the blessings and the curses for the children of Israel. So basically, when Israel entered into an agreement with the Most High Yahuwah, Yahuwah outlined blessings and curses. The blessings were there if Israel would do what they were supposed to do, and the curses were there if Israel didn't do what they were supposed to do. So basically, we know that the curses befell Israel, the children of Israel, and according to Deuteronomy 28, you can actually use the curses to find or identify the people of the children of Israel today, because it's supposed to be a perpetual curse. So I did want to point out one of the curses in Deuteronomy 28, and you should be able to see it there on your screen. And one is Deuteronomy 28, verse 32, where it says, "Thy sons and thy daughters." So as we do a quick review, I want us to focus in on the children of the Jews that are on the west coast of Africa. I want us to focus in on the children. Just pay attention to references about children, sons, and daughters. Because if we cross-reference that with Deuteronomy 28, it says, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. And thine eyes shall long, and failing with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand." So basically, one of the curses that would befall the true children of Israel, would be that their sons and thy daughters would be given unto another people. Okay? Now, let's take a look at another of the many curses in Deuteronomy 28. And this particular curse says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they, the sons and daughters, shall go into captivity." Did you catch that? Let's read it again. "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they, the sons and daughters, for they shall go into captivity." Okay, so now that we have that backdrop, I just wanted to kind of lay that foundation. Let's go into our review of the references that we reviewed within our first video. Not all of them, just a handful. So in our first reference review, we're going to just talk about John Ogilvie one more time. And if you don't remember, John Ogilvie is one of our high value references, and it's the reason why we refer to him as a high value reference is because of the time period that his reference comes from, and also who the reference is. So this reference comes from the 1600s, and also it comes from John Ogilvie, who at the time was the cosmographer and geographic printer of the king. And I believe it was King Charles II. So John Ogilvie would be someone that we would want to know, get an idea of what his thoughts were, because he would have, we would expect him to have the ear of the king at the time. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with the references and the page numbers, that sort of thing. If you want that, just take a peek at the other video. But we're just trying to help speed things up here. So I'm just going to go straight to the quote. So the quote that we want to review here with John Ogilvie it's within the red rectangle on the screen. But you can see where it says, let's see if I can find my place here. It says that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither. So John, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So 200 years before the writing of the book that we're reading now. So this book was written in, I believe it was 1670. So 200 years before that, it was in the 1400s. And we know, of course, King John was around. King John of Portugal was around during the 1400s. So far, so good. So it says, John, the King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So in the 1400s, John sent a colony to the west coast of Africa to St. Thomas. It says, well, to the west coast of Africa. It says, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate. For he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, and I got to have a map of Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas. So he sent new inhabitants who settled those three places. And it said that so they might be better used to the air. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. Okay, so we understood that the king of Portugal sent the Jews to the west coast of Africa. He sent them to three places, Guinea, Angola, and St. Thomas, because they refused to embrace the Roman religion. And it said, and caused their children. Now, this is what I wanted to key in on this go around. It says, and caused their children to be baptized. From whom? So, from the children, coming thither in great numbers. So, did you catch that? Let me back up a little bit. It says, and caused their children to be baptized, from whom, from these children, coming thither, and where is thither? The west coast of Africa, in great numbers. Then it says, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Okay? So just want to key in on the fact that it was the children that were coming to the west coast of Africa in great numbers. And that it was John Ogilvy's belief that most of the present inhabitants were descended. Okay? So now that we have that, I just want to show you and kind of refresh your memory on the west coast of Africa in Guinea. So here's a outline of the Guinea territory on the west coast of Africa, just in case you're confused as far as what it looks like. So here's what it looks like. Angola is right below Guinea there, so it's pretty much the whole west coast of Africa. So this entire territory, all this yellow here, that's where the Jews were sent, and that the descendants of these guys were the children. It was the children that were sent here from the west, from Portland, or from the king of Portugal. Okay, all right. So let's go to our next reference here, just for a quick review. And so this is another high value reference that we went over last time, but again, we're going to focus on the references to the children this time. So this comes from the official chronicler of King John, Garcia de Resende. So Garcia was the official chronicler of King John. So we would also want to know what Garcia would have to say, right? He's not just some guy. He's a official chronicler. Now it says, I'm going to skip down to the bottom to the second underlying red underline here, where it says, well, I'll start in the sentence here. It says, in 1493, those who could not pay had their children taken away from them, baptized by force, and deported to St. Thomas or Sao Tome in order to be raised as Christians. All right, so we see there where it says, had their children taken away from them, baptized by force, and deported. They were sent to St. Thomas in order to be raised as Christians. So again, we see that it was the children that were taken away from the Jews, from the parents, and sent to the west coast of Africa. If you can kind of just sit back and think about that for a while, what that must have looked and felt like, you'll get an idea of how traumatic that had to have been. But again, this is can be found in Deuteronomy, right? Because we read that before. Deuteronomy 28, I believe it's 41. It said that the children would go into captivity. So here we're actually seeing it play out in these references. Okay. All right. Now going over to our third quote here, and this is pretty much says the same thing, where it says, I'm going to skip down to the last sentence in the underlying section here, where it says, "Nor was this all, since the king wrested from their parents all children between the ages of 3 and 10." And what we noted before was that in this reference it says 3 and 10, and previous other references we see that it was increased from 3 to 10 to 3 and children in the young adults in their teens, and then it was later increased to 3 and young adults in their 20s. So that it explains how you get great numbers of these Jewish children on the west coast of Africa. All right, so now that we've established that, I just wanted to make sure that you keyed in on the fact that it was the children that were sent over to the west coast of Africa, and that knowing that, you can begin to see how a race of people, can began to be separated from their history, right? Because they're separated from their parents and they're being raised to be something else.
very sad occasion to see children. Some of y'all have children, grandchildren. Imagine them being ripped and separated from your arms. I have a 10-year-old daughter. They might as well just kill me because, it's just, that's what happened. And we're reading this out of books that you cannot buy, you cannot pay for these books right now. So, just to bring that in proper perspective to you. Yep. So this is what Israel went through. This is a part of the curses that was placed upon us. Back to Brother Israel.
All right. So now on to our next set of references. So for this reference, what we're going to do is that we're going to start off with a contemporary reference, and then we're going to move to our antiquity references. So now that we know that the Jews were sent to Africa, right? They weren't. They were sent by the Portuguese and the Spain, and they were from also the expulsion edicts in Europe. That they basically gathered on the west coast of Africa. Then sometimes the question is, well, did anyone know about it? Other than the people that dumped them there, the people that placed them there. Did anyone know about it? Well, what we found is that there are some contemporary researchers that have run into the truth, so to speak. So one example would be Alan Godbey. Alan Godbey was a researcher He was a Duke professor in the early 1900s. And in his book, The Lost Tribes and Myth, Suggestions Towards Rewriting Hebrew History, in the back of his book, what I'm showing here on the screen is just on the back of his book, the map. You can see where he identifies locations of black Jews in Africa. He calls them, Negro Jews, Moorish Jews, Falasha Jews, and Yemen Jews and Berber Jews. So, in his book, he identifies, of course, Angola Jews. So the Angola Jews, we've read those references in the previous video, but Alan Godby does a good job of showing you exactly where those Jews are. Same thing with Saint Thomas or Saint Thomas Jews. And this is an interesting view here of the Nigerian Jews. It shows you where the Levite cities were located off of the Niger River. And then you also see B'nai Ephraim, that basically means sons of Ephraim. And then below that, you also see where it says terracotta heads patterned after 500 BC in the foreign quarters of Memphis. So the takeaway here is that the contemporary researchers like Alan Godby and others were able to identify where these Israelites were on the west coast of Africa. Now, I'm going to review a reference by Hannah Adams before as a background here. So Hannah Adams, she wrote in her book in the 1800s as well. She wrote that the Jews that lived in Portugal and Spain professed to be from the tribe of Judah. So what that means is that the Portuguese and the Spanish understood that the Jews in their territories were from Judah. Why is that significant? Well, when we look at maps of the west coast of Africa, and you may have seen this map before, but the thing here is that this is basically the slave coast. You can see where it says slave coast here at the bottom, and then at the top there's another name for it. It says Kingdom of Judah or Slave Coast. So there was two names given to this territory. But the question is, who gave this sliver of land that name? Like, who called this this area here the Kingdom of Judah? Just think about that for a moment. So, and if you're, if you're guessing that it was possibly the Portuguese, well, let's not guess. Let's look at the references. Now, this reference comes from a book called Africa and Its Inhabitants, Volume 2. And this comes from page 410. Do want to point out that above I do have a map here. It's another French map. I didn't have the details here, but you can also see that it's also calling the slave coast the Kingdom of Judah. So if we look at a reference on page 410, it says, skipping to the second sentence, it says, the old writers called it Judah, and its inhabitants were said to be Jews, while the neighboring river Alala, whose real name is Ephra, became the Euphrates. And of course, if we take a look at our map at the top, you'll see, if you can look closely at your screen, that at the top of that yellow circle, it says Euphrates there. So that we do see that. We can confirm that in maps. Just want to point that out. So if we keep reading, it says, during the flourishing days of the slave trade, from 16 to 18,000 were annually transported from Judah, as the Portuguese called this place. Okay, let's stop right there. So we just said that the Portuguese called this place, and we'll read later. It was the Portuguese slavers that called the place Judah. Now, why is that significant? Well, a couple of things. One is, so this reference confirms that it was the Jews that were on the west coast of Africa. And it also confirms that it was the Jews that were being sent as slaves. Remember, it says that during the flourishing days of the slave trade, from 16 to 18,000 were annually transported from Judah. Okay, so we know that. So this tells us that it was the Jews that were sent into the transatlantic slave trade. It was the Jews that were placed on the west coast of Africa, and it makes sense that this place would be called the Kingdom of Judah by the Portuguese, because the Portuguese placed the Jews there under was it King John? So we read those references that said as much, right? So it's not us saying that; it's the references that are saying it. All right. Now going to our next quote, and this quote comes from, you can see the name there, but this is a quote from a French book, and it comes from page 272. And let's read it. It says, Judah, Wida, and has different names there, but Judah is an ancient city frequented since the 16th century by Portuguese slave traders who gave it its name. All right, so let's read that again. It says, Judah is an ancient city frequented since the 16th century by Portuguese slave traders who gave it its name. Its inhabitants were called Judaic, and indeed they were regarded as a remnant of the scattered tribes of Israel. All right, so we can see here that the Portuguese gave the slave coast the name Kingdom of Judah. Okay, just wanted to establish that. And as a cross check, this is just another reference kind of thrown in there just to hammer home the point that these Jews were in fact black Jews. Let's take a look. It says, I'm going to see 3 paragraphs here, but I'm going to jump down to the second paragraph in the sentence where it says, a remarkable fact in the history of Luango and the Empire of Congo is that the country, according to a statement which was fully credited by Oldendorp himself, a writer of most correct judgment and of unimpeachable veracity. So this is an upstanding guy, right? Is basically what the William Armistead is saying. It says, contains many Jews settled in it. So to answer the point, or to answer the question, did they know that there were Jews there on the west coast of Africa? And what we're finding out is that the answer is yes. But let's keep reading. It says, who retain their religious rights and the distinct habits which keep them isolated from the other nations. Though thus separate, let's pay attention here. It says, though thus separate from the African population, they are black. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. We don't need any interpretation around that, right? So they are black and resemble the other Negroes in every respect as to physical character. So basically, they look like them, but they're Jews. It says, it is probable in allusion to this case that Pennington, Pennington's another author during the time, in his book, which is called Textbook, says, the descendants of a colony of Jews originally from Judea, okay, settled on the coast of Africa are black. Okay, so just want to make sure that we know that these Jews are the black Jews. Okay. Now, with the Jews being on the west coast of Africa, we saw that on some maps it was called the Kingdom of Judah or the Slave Coast. what you may not know is that there were other names that were given to that territory or that area, and these other names actually shed light on who the people were there. Okay, so you'll see I have a map on the screen, and you can see where it says it's giving you 3 names for this region. So Udan, Lam, or Negro Land. So Udan, Lam, or Negro Land. And we'll take a look at the word Udan here shortly. But look at, you see Lam or Negro Land. So I just wanted to let you get aware of those names there. So let's read a reference about Udan. So see your reference on the screen. That's the title and book. Authors on there as well. You can see the publication date. And this comes from a page that's close to the front of the book. The front of the book has a bunch of Roman numerals before it gets into the numbering of the book. So I have that at the bottom here. But just wanted to point out where it says, the Jews of Udan are, according to my informers, divided into many large and small tribes, with whose names they are unacquainted. Their mode of life in some countries is pastoral, but the towns are filled with traders and artificers of that faith, who gain substance at their several employments in the service of the Muslims, under whose government they live as vassals. So we just took it. We were just looking at a map, right, where it said Udan. So now we're reading where, the Jews are. The Jews are there. So this is just another confirmation that the Jews were in Udan. And I'm going to skip down a bit, just kind of speed things up, where it says the lands occupied by these people cover a wide extent between Messina and Kabi. So basically, from this quote tells us that that the Jews were kind of spread out over a vast territory. Okay, and and then it gives a quote from Bashal. Now Bashal is an African, black African in Africa, and he tells us why the Jews are there. It says they. Let's see, but they are not esteemed like us, for they are a people hardened in their sins and obstinate in their infidelity. It says the anger of God is upon them. So they knew that God's anger was upon them. And it says, and therefore are they given to the rule of the Muslims. So it was their understanding that God's anger was upon them because they had broke God's laws, and that they were given to the Muslims to do with as they willed. And then if you keep reading in that book, if you actually get a copy of that book, you'll see where Bashal then goes on to describe some of the colors of the Jews. One of the things I did learn as I was researching, what you'll find out the same thing, is that whenever there's an African giving a description of color, Africans tend to be a bit more descriptive. Like they differentiate between the hues of brown, whereas if there's a European writer giving a description, they tend to be more black and white, not necessarily acknowledging the different gradients there. So because of that, I have a little blurb here at the bottom of the this reference, just to point out that the Bashal goes on to describe the Jews as brown colored instead of the pitch black color of some Ashanti. All right. Side note there, but just an FYI. Okay. So some of the other names of the Jews on the west coast of Africa. So we saw where we had Udan there, and we read about Udan. So, but most people don't know that the Jews were also called Caffrey. And what was significant about Caffrey? So Caffrey was a name that was given by the Portuguese, right? In the Portuguese, it says Caffreys or Caffrates, that is to say, lawless or outlaws. Okay, so that was the meaning of the word Caffrey. And that matches up with what we've learned so far and what we've read so far in our references. Because remember, the Portuguese and the Spanish and some of these other countries, they were sending these Jews over as prisoners, because they were quote unquote lawbreakers. But so it makes sense that they would call them Caffreys, or they would call them outlaws. Okay, so again, we're noticing that our references are starting to line up because we have a good understanding of what happened in the history leading up to this. And so that therefore, when we read works like works from Leo Africanus, and we're not surprised when Leo Africanus says, some also think that the people called Caffrey or Caphrates at this day, who are Gentiles, draw their original from the Jews, being environed on every side by idolaters. They have by little and little swayed from the law of Moses. We just read about that, right? And so are they become, as it were, insensible idolaters. On the other side, the Jews, being wonderfully increased in Spain, passed one after another into Africa and Mauritania, and dispersed themselves even to the confines of Namibia, especially by means of traffic. So we know that traffic in these old books means slavery. Okay. All right. So what we're finding out is that our references are all lining up. We're starting to see a uniform history picture of history to be formed here. All right, and this is just another quote, just to call attention to the description of the Jews. It's actually another Oldendorp quote where it says, "A fact worthy of the attention of travelers is that, according to Oldendorp, the kingdom of the Wango contains black Jews scattered throughout the country. They are despised by the Negroes, who do not even deign to eat with them." Okay. All right. So I won't go too much into that one. Just want to make it through these slides. My goal is for this presentation not to be too long here. So we're getting closer to the end of it. Just want to run through these references. So this reference, hopefully you saw the title screen there. But here it says, Yehudi, a place of great trade. This place is reported to be inhabited by one of the lost tribes of Israel, possibly an immigration from the tribe of Judah. Yehuda in African Arabic signifies Judah. Yehudi signifies Jew. It is not impossible that many of the lost tribes of Israel may be found dispersed in the interior regions of Africa, when we shall become better acquainted with that continent. All right. Okay. And I do want to end on this particular quote. And for this quote, it's called a private journal kept during the Nigger expedition. So in the 1800s, there was this guy, it was William Simpson. He was going into accompany an expedition to the, modern day it's called Niger River, but back in the day it was called Nigger River. So he was going to accompany an expedition, and prior to embarking, he was giving, 2 letters from two chief Portuguese rabbis in London, and thought it'd be interesting just to take a look at the letter that was given to William Simpson as he went to explore the Niger River or the Nigger River Delta. Let's see. Let's take a look at this letter. And it reads, "Peace to our brethren, the children of Israel, in all place of their habitations. I, the servant of the Lord, named David the Little, is he who writes this, in order to inquire after your welfare, and the number of souls, and wishes also to know your occupation, and what books are to be found amongst you after the conclusion of the Talmud." Now that part is interesting because if you're familiar with the Renaissance age and or whatnot, you know that the that there was a lot of book burnings that occurred back then. So the fact that he's asking for books right off the bat doesn't really bode well for whoever he's going to run into. Okay, all right. So that's that. Now, for the last part of this video, and we're going to close this out with by looking at the slave manifest. So now that we read references that showed that the Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa. So most people know that the slaves were sent from the west coast of Africa, but very few people know that the slaves were actually placed onto the west coast of Africa first. The Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa first. Okay, in addition to those that migrated from Jerusalem, but specifically those from the Inquisition, which was going on at the time, and those that were expelled from the different places were placed on the west coast of Africa, then turned around and sold as slaves. Okay, all right. So now let's take a look at what we're going to do here. We're just going to do a quick exercise where we learn how to identify Israelite names when we see them. Now, to do that, we're going to use the Strong's Concordance, and we're going to run through the Strong's Concordance, and we're going to see that the things that the children of Israel like to do is to put Yah's name in their name. So the prophets understood that. You have Isaiah, Jeremiah, so they understood that, and they had a direct communication with the Most High. We look at Isaiah, right, and we look at the. I'm going to butcher this name here, so I'm just going to read where it says brother of Yah, and an Israelite name, but just notice where it says the name of several Israelites. Yah has grasped the name of several Israelites. The next one, Yah is mighty, the name of several Israelites. Yah has helped, the name of a number of Israelites. So there's a lot of people during that time putting Yah's name in their name. A lot of Israelites. Let's see, Benaiah. Yah has built up the name of several Israelites. You see that? Yah sees an Israelite of Jeremiah's time. Okay. Yah loosens the name of a number of Israelites. So you can see it kind of goes on and on and on. I'm going to kind of shortcut this here, click through it. But just know that a good way to find out or to identify Israelite name is just to look at, see if it has Yah in the name, and also El. One of my priests called that out as well, that the El was also used. One of my elders pointed out El, like Joel, Ezekiel, used in the names of several Israelites as well. But for this exercise, we're only going to take a look at Yah, like what names have Yah in it. So if we take a look at the the transatlantic slave trade database and do a quick search for Yah, just to see if the cross check to see if that there's were Israelites that were on those ships, we do find the names of several Israelites. And this is, we're in the A's right here. Again, the names of several Israelites. So we see the same pattern that we find in the Bible and in the Strong's Concordance. We find that exact same pattern in the transatlantic slave trade database of the people that were on the ships. So with that being said, we'll end this right here. We'll call this part 2. Again, the purpose of part 2 is just to confirm the Jews on the west coast of Africa. Part 1, we read the references that talked about the Jews being placed onto the west coast of Africa, and in this video we talked about the Jews, confirmation that the Jews were on the west coast of Africa by other references. Thanks again for listening. Again, feel free to continue to research, and shalom.
All right. Brother Benaiah, Israel, we're going to be bringing you more to come, brothers and sisters. I enjoyed what he has put together. I saw what you had put over there, Brother Ryan, and I think somebody says everybody knows who we are but us, and that's the case. Everybody knows who we are but us. So we're getting there, brothers and sisters. We got a long way to go, but we are getting there. So that being said, we just have to realize that it's incumbent upon us to learn more and more and more. All right, so let me see. Brother Rodney Frederick, how you doing, my brother? We haven't seen you in a while. Glad that you're here with us. So what we're getting from these videos and these lessons, and we have more to come, brothers and sisters. This is a special report tonight, so we got more to come. What we're getting from is a lot of times you show people in the scriptures who we are, and many of us don't need no other proof but the scriptures. You can just read the scriptures and know who we are. But it is also good that you can go to other books and find out information to substantiate the scriptures. Now, when I go into the lesson dealing with the Gospel of Daniel, the history told by Daniel, I show the kingdoms that Daniel said that were going to be in place. Babylon, then the Medes and the Persians, then Greek, and then Rome. I go into the encyclopedia and show you that, in fact, when you read the history in the encyclopedia, those nations came in that order. So that's why it's good to, in addition to what we know in the scriptures, is to get information like this. Now, we're going to go listen to another song put together by Minister Michael Norman, who also is a good brother who's out there. He's a minister over there in the Carolinas. He's doing a lot of teaching. He is a electrician, a contractor by trade. He started a school there in Charlotte, and he is giving people who come out of prison an opportunity to become apprentice in the field of the electrical trade. So he's doing a very good job over there. Thank you, Brother Dex T. As we say, you all hit that like button so we can build up the algorithm, because we got more to come. So we're going to play this video that he did. This was sparked right after the Michael Floyd, the Floyd incident. But in addition, there was another location. There was another kid who was also killed and shot at the hands of police. And what happened was nobody kind of gave it any attention. So Minister Michael Norman went over to that area and wrote a song based upon that incident so that it too would not be lost in the shuffles. But you see, brothers and sisters, when we look at all of these curses and these things that are coming upon Israel, it's just letting you know that we can get out of this if we return back to him. Now, when the scripture says when the Messiah returns, when Jesus returns, he will gather us one by one from the nation where we have been scattered. So we're going to go over there and listen to this. But before we bring Minister Michael Norman, who's going to do that video, song video, then we're going to go right into part 3, being brought to by Brother Benea. Here's some information on a YouTube channel. I want to give you all information on, and their advertising. If you're just sitting at home, you just want to listen to the word of God, you want to just hear the word audibly, here's a sister out of the Israel of God that is doing this YouTube channel. And then we're going to go into Minister Michael Norman, then continue our special report.
Can't breathe. Can't breathe. Oppression pressing on my neck. My thinking, breathing, heritage been cut off. I'm dying in this American wreck. In the valley of the dry bones, no flesh, just bones. We were once the rulers, but now we sing our enemy's song. Oh, say, can you see? Blinding lies, my people are not free. This is captivity. We wanted to be like them, we integrated with them, worship their gods and their idols like them. Jacob troubles, pressure, more pressure on the neck. I can't breathe. No oxygen to the brain drives a man insane. The heathen rage, the lions that once ruled the nations roar and roam in a cage. Programmed to kill the offspring with injections, wiping out the bloodline with demon infections, trying to corrupt the Most High olive tree so that the natural branches will not return to thee. Choke them out, pressure, choke them out, natural seed, replace them with GMO seeds. Oh no, it will never please the Most High's knees. The chains become tighter around our neck, controlling dog leash. The skin is raw to the bone, can't move, can't see, your whole body hurts. I can't breathe, can't breathe. Simulation, I can't breathe. Incarceration, I can't breathe. Reparation, I can't breathe. Losing my sanity, we can't breathe. Simulation, I can't breathe. Incarceration, I can't breathe. Reparation, I can't breathe. Losing our sanity, we can't breathe. Get off my neck. Year 1600, chains on my people's neck. 1776, no freedom, red, white, and blue around my people's neck. 1863, Emancipation Proclamation, dog leash around my people's neck. 1900, Jim Crow around our neck. 2000, increased poverty, no upward mobility, incarceration around our necks. 2020, heavy chains are on our necks. Death is on our necks. We can't breathe, we can't breathe. The enemy are bashed deep into our bloodline. We die, we cry to the Most High. You promised that you would save us from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. Murdered black men and women, blood cries out from the dust. Please forgive us, we want a new birth. Most High, please wrap our bones with skin. Breathe life into us again that we may live. Ezekiel, prophesy to these bones. Life, hope, deliverance. Simulation, I can't breathe. Incarceration, I can't breathe. Reparation, I can't breathe. Losing our sanity, we can't breathe. Simulation, I can't breathe. Incarceration, I can't breathe. Reparation, I can't breathe. Losing our sanities, America, we can't breathe. Get off my neck.
All right, brothers and sisters, we come into our third part. Brother Benaiah Israel, so sad what has happened to our children when we read these stories and events. The things that they did to us, just totally amazing to me. When you just read what they did, force a lot of children into Romish Christianity. Doesn't that sound familiar? When we're fighting people about what day the Sabbath is, we're fighting the descendants of those children who was forced into a doctrine and a strong delusion. And even when we try to show it, the battle of our history to bring it to reality is among Israel, who don't know that they are Israel. Sad, but it's just the way things are. It's a part of the curse. He says, I will blind them that they would not see, ears will be stopped, Read that over in Romans, the 11th chapter. And you can read it all throughout the prophets. So, hopefully in this next segment, being brought by Brother Beneo, you'll get some more information and confirmation. And hopefully, during Black History Month, we will be showing every Sabbath. We'll be simulcasting a 5-week lesson. 5-week lesson. And we want you to prepare for that. Subscribe to this channel, like, share, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Here's
Shalom,
Brother
family.
Beneo.
It's your brother Beneo Ben Israel coming to you once again with a third installment of our series, Black History, the Inquisition. That's Black History, the Inquisition. And I think with this installment, we'll try to wrap up the segment that deals with Israel being placed onto the west coast of Africa by the Inquisition and by the expulsion edicts that took place throughout Europe. And then from there, we'll kind of roll into our next series, or the hope is that we'll roll into our next series, which deals with the color of Israel. And in that series, we'll go into great detail and review lots and lots of references that deals with the color of the Jews. And we'll also explain why there are different, there appears to be two different types of Jews. You have white Jews or red Jews, as they were called, and you have black Jews, who are considered the ancient Jews. So we'll go into that and explain that in our next series. But for this series, we'll wrap up the expulsion of the Jews from Europe and the placement of the Jews onto the west coast of Africa. In this video, we're going to review 3 references. And now the point of these references is we want to provide greater detail as to what took place in Portugal and when at the time when the Jews were being taken out of Portugal and being placed onto the west coast of Africa, because I think there's a lot of good information there that you'll find interesting. So, and again, hopefully these are 3 references that you haven't seen before. So let's get started. All right, so this first reference, and let me see if I can get my page number here. And so if you remember in the previous videos, for the most part, we focused on King John, because King John was the king of Portugal at the time of the expulsion edict. And that was back in the 1400s, or the 15th century. And during the time of King John, that's when Portugal took a lot of their Jews and placed them onto the west coast of Africa. All right, so on your screen here, let's see here. This is let me do this. We're on page 529. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top just so that you can see the title and the author. And most of these books were from the 1800s. I believe one of the references was from the 1700s, and if I can remember to point that out, I will. But we like using references that are 1800 or older. The references that have a publication date of 1800 or older, because what we found was that those references tend to have a lot of truth in them. The books that were printed in the 1900s tend to not have a lot of truth. And, we have a lot of theories as to why that is, and it has to do with Edomites controlling or taking control of the printing press in the 1900s, and we also correlate that with the time that the history in the books began to change. So anyway, that's pure theory and supposition, but just wanted to let you know that for the most part, we tend to use books with the publication dates of 1800 or older. Okay, all right, so now that that's out of the way, you should see the title and the author on your screen. So it looks like the Nautical Magazine. Again, this is from the 1800s. I'm just going to scroll down so that you can see the author as well. Okay, all right. So let's see if we can find our place again. I think we were at 529. All right, so that's 528, and then last but not least, let's go to 529. Okay. All right, so for this quote, we're going to start near the bottom. I'm going to zoom in so that you can read along with me here. And we're going to start in this paragraph. I think that's probably as far as I can zoom in. But we're going to see where it says Barbet. In this paragraph, it says Barbet states that the reign of, you can look at that as King John II. About the close of the 15th century, it says large numbers of Jews were expelled from Portugal and taken to the coast of southern Guinea. Again, just want to point out, southern Guinea is on the west coast of Africa. So again, what we're seeing is that reference after reference confirms that the Portuguese placed large numbers of Jews on the west coast of Africa. So at this point, we can look at this as an established fact. I think at this point, we're beyond this being theory, right? This is an established fact. But let's keep going. So it says, let's start again. It says, Barbet states that in the reign of King John II, and about the close of the 15th century, right? So in the latter part, the end part of the 1400s, it says large numbers of Jews were expelled from Portugal and taken to the coast of southern Guinea, west coast of Africa. That the island of St. Thomas on the west coast of Africa, which is not more than 100 miles from the mainland, was populated by mulattoes. And here's, mulattoes, that's a term for mixed people. But we'll keep reading and we'll find out that they weren't so mixed. But it says, was populated by mulattoes, descendant from the Jewish exiles and Angola women. So here they're supposing that these black Jews were the combination of Jews and black women. So let's keep reading. It says, it is possible that the Jewish type of this character noticed in Gabon and Luango may have originated from this source. But if so, it is unknown to the present inhabitants of the country. So in other words, when they asked the people in the country, say, hey, you guys mixed? Like, no. So they didn't confirm it. So, and if it keeps reading, it says, and it would have been somewhat singular if the Roman Catholic missionaries at Luango had not detected this circumstance. So basically, they're saying that the Roman Catholics, they didn't come up to that conclusion. He said, instead of regarding them as pure African family of Jews. So the Roman Catholic looked at them as a pure African family of Jews. So again, we can look at this reference to confirm that the Jews were in fact black, and they were, in this reference, they were looked upon as a pure African family of Jews. Okay? A pure African family of Jews. All right, so that's our first reference. And again, we have three references. So if we go over to our second reference, and let me see if I can grab this page number here. So this is on page 141. And I'm going to go all the way up to the top so you can see the title and the author. So let's see. This is from Princeton University, the Library of Princeton University. And let's keep scrolling down. The Critical Review of Annals of Literature. And let's see if we can see the author, all right, by the Society of Gentlemen. And let's see, there's our publication date. It is, here we go. I believe that's it. This is in the 1700s here. All right, so now that you've seen that, I'm going to see if we can find our page again. All right, again, just bear with me here while I find it. It's on page 141. I think I went a bit too far in this case. All right. This should be 141. All right. So again, I'm going to zoom in. And again, let's read about King John and the Jews on the west coast of Africa. Let's see if this provides any additional information. So I'm going to see if I can find a good place to start. And I'm going to bring it all the way up to the top of the page. So at the top of the page, you'll see where it says, Prince Henry's colonies were enlarged by his successors. So basically it's saying Prince Henry's, his colonies on the west coast of Africa, they were expanded by the kings that came after him. So then it says King John II, the king that came after him, in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas. Again, this is in line with all the other references that we've read so far. So again, let me start again. It says King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471. Then it says, now in addition, and to other Portuguese settlements. You got it? So it's saying it's King John in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. So again, this is confirming that King John not only sent the Jews just to St. Thomas, but he sent them also to additional places on the west coast of Africa. And we found that those additional places were on the west coast of Africa. Okay, and let's read. Let's see if we can read a little bit more here. It says, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, let me start again. And from these banished Jews, the black Portuguese. You see that? The black Portuguese, as they are called. Again, if you ever had any question about what the color of the Portuguese Jews were, this one should put that to bed, right? So let's read it again. It says, let me back up a little bit. It says, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa, and from these banished Jews. So these banished Jews are the Portuguese Jews that were sent to the west coast of Africa. It says, from these banished Jews, the black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews in Luango, who are despised even by the very Negroes. So this is an interesting series of words here. It says, even by the very Negroes. So it's almost like saying they're hated by their own people, are descended. So let's read this again. It says, and the Jews in Luango, who are despised even by the very Negroes, are descended. So and there's a lot of information that's behind this statement. I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. On the west coast of Africa, not only were the descendants of the tribe of Judah or the house of Judah on the west coast of Africa, but also the other tribes of Judah, the children of Israel were on the west coast of Africa. So if you're familiar with the children of Israel, you know that there's 12 tribes. And when you're doing your research and when you come across the word Negroes, in your mind, I want you to think the children of Israel or the 12 tribes of Israel. So whenever you see the word Negroes, think of it as the 12 tribes of Israel. And likewise, whenever you see the word Jews, you need to think of either the tribe of Judah, which is one of the 12 tribes, or you can think of the house of Judah, which was initially it consisted of 3 of the 12 tribes. However, over time, some of the northern tribes came over to be referred to as the house of Judah. So just know that Jews can refer to either the tribe of Judah or the house of Judah. And also when you think of the word Negroes, when you see Negroes, you can think of that as the 12 tribes of Israel. So all 12 tribes. Okay. All right. So with that background, let's read that again here. I'm just going to back up here. It says, King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews in Luango, who are despised even by the very Negroes, are descended. Okay? And let's see here. Maybe some more information here to pull out of here. It says, by these colonists, St. Thomas soon became a considerable place of trade and valuable for its sugar plantations. So we should be familiar with that word plantations, right? 30 years after their settlement, so 30 years after their settlement, no less than 100, or 30 years after their settlement, after whose settlement? After the settlement of these Black Portuguese Jews. So 30 years after their settlement, no less than 156,000 robes of 30 pounds weight each of sugar were exported. So basically, after these Black Portuguese Jews were shipped to the west coast of Africa, they started sending out sugar, or exporting sugar from these plantations. It says, and the engines of 60 sugar works turned by slaves. It says, these Negroes, now it's saying these Negroes. So at first, couple sentences up, we were talking about the Jews, but now it's switching names. I don't know if you picked up on that, but it says, these Negroes were purchased in Guinea, Congo, and Mani-Congo. And the colonists had plantations furnished with from 152,000 Negro slaves. All right. So anyway, so this quote is good for pointing out that the Jews that were placed on the west coast of Africa were, in fact, one, they were Jews from Portugal. I just want to point that out. They were Jews from Portugal placed onto the west coast of Africa. And again, if you notice that in this reference, it also says that there was a large number of Jews. So it was a lot of them. A lot of Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa. And then it also tells you that these were Black Portuguese Jews. Okay? So at this point, we should have a good picture of what they looked like and who they were. Okay? All right, so that's the second of our three references. Let's move to our third reference. Now, this reference, we're going to cover in a bit more detail. This reference, it's a good reference to point out the conditions in Portugal and I want to call it the craziness that was happening in Portugal at the time. And so for this one, let's see, we're on page 213. And again, I'm going to scroll all the way to the front of the book. Let's see if I can get you a good view of the title. All right, there we go. The Jews and the Moors in Spain. And this, again, is from in the 1800s. So let's see if we can find our page again. Let's see, 213. There we go. All right, so bear with me just for a second. I'm just going to zoom in. And there we go. All right, so get one more enhanced zoom here. There you go. All right. So on the right side of your screen, you should see the text that reads, and this is from page 213. It says nearly. Oh, let me give you just a quick background of where this reference picks up. So this reference picks up, King John of Portugal again. So most of the references that we've looked at to date deal with King John II of Portugal, and it also deals with the with the Jews coming from Spain. So the Jews were banished from Spain first. And when they were kicked out of Spain, if you're looking at a map of Spain, you'll see Portugal was on the left of Spain. So naturally, when the Jews fled out of Spain, they fled into Portugal. And what we've read before was that the king of Portugal he let the Jews in, but he said, hey, you guys got to pay some money. They call it I forget, like a tax or something like that. He said, you guys got to pay me some money if you want to come in here. And not only that, he allowed them to come to temporarily stay there. And I believe it was for 8 months. He said, I'll let you guys come in here on your way to Africa. So basically he says, you guys can come in, but you can't stay. Okay. So this is where this quote picks up. So let's take a look at this quote. It says nearly 150,000 souls made their way by land to Portugal, whose King John II, right, dispensed with the scruples, I'll break this down for you, the scruples of conscience, so far as to allow his greed to triumph over his creed. So basically it's saying when the King of Portugal saw these Jews coming in, he wanted to make some money. Basically, he said, okay, well, you guys can come in, but we got to do some business first, right? So he says he granted them a passage through his dominion on their way to Africa. Did you catch that? It says he granted them a passage through his dominion on their way to Africa, and the permission of an 8-month stay in his realm. So he said, I'll let you stay here for 8 months on your way to Africa, but then after that, you got to be gone. All right. So then it says, in consideration of a tax of $8 a head, which immense sum. So back in the day, it's saying that was a lot of money. It said, which immense sum he levied from the native Portuguese Jews. So let's pause right here just to make sure you understand what it just said. It said, so the Jews in Spain, right? Jews in Spain coming into Portugal. King of Portugal wanted to make some money. He said, hey, you guys, I'll let you guys come on in on your way going out. But on your way coming in, you got to pay some money. And I'm not going to tell you what, I'm not going to get money from you. I'm going to get money from your brothers here in Portugal. So basically, he taxed the Portuguese Jews for their brothers coming in. It soon gave way to the most frightful era of the exiles' suffering. All right, so after the Jews came in, what it's saying is that something bad happened. And it says, when the news reached the homeless exiles, so the Spanish Jews that came to Portugal, it says, when the news reached the homeless exiles of the atrocity or atrocious crimes inflicted upon their brethren on their way to the African coast by inhumane captains and heartless crews, seeing nothing but cruel death before them, whether going or whether remaining, they preferred meeting death in Portugal. So basically, as the Jews from Spain came into Portugal, and some of them went to Africa, they were getting word back that some of their brothers, their brethren that were getting on those ships, they weren't making it. Some of them weren't making it to their destination. Some of them were being, most of them were being pillaged and raped, and their clothes taken from them, and they were being dumped onto the west coast, on the coast of Africa. And we've read that on some of our other references. So the Jews that hadn't got on the boat yet, they're hearing the word getting back to them about what's going on, and they're saying, man, if this is going to happen, I might as well just stay here and take my chances here. So this is what that's saying. It's saying that they heard all the bad things that were happening to the ones that were getting on the ship from Portugal to go to Africa, that they decided to take their chances in Portugal. So let's see. It says, let's pick it up again where it says, African coast by inhumane captains and heartless crews, seeing nothing but cruel death before them, whether going or whether remaining. They preferred meeting death in Portugal to exposing themselves to the inhumane and beastly lust and tortures of barbarous pirate sailors and African savages, and listlessly awaiting death and praying for it. They remained after the time purchased for their stay had passed away. So basically, the King of Portugal said, I'll give you 8 months on your way to Africa. But then after that 8 months, if you're still around, I'm going to arrest you, and do some bad things to you. So the ones that hadn't got on the ships, they said, you know what? There looks like our brethrens are dying on the ships anyway. Let's just stay here in Portugal and take our chances here in Portugal. So it says, to their misfortune, it said the plague broke out in Portugal and raged with deathly fury. So, as the Portuguese were staying there, plague broke out. And what we know is that according to Deuteronomy 28, that the plague would follow the Jews, wherever they went. And that was part of the curse of the Jews from turning away from Yah's word. And as we take a look at it, just want to take a quick look here. So we look at Deuteronomy 28, and this is verse 21. So Deuteronomy 28, verse 21, just to take a quick look at the plagues, where it says, the Elohim shall make the pestilence cleave unto you, until he has consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. It says, the Elohim shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. So part of the curse was that these pestilences and these plagues would follow the Jews wherever they went. And what we're seeing in this reference is, that truly did come to pass while they were sitting there in Portugal. So let's turn the page. Let's go over to, just bear with me just for a moment. I'm going to go up to the top of the next page. So it says, so when the Jews got the plague, it says, and it says, lashed the populace into a relentless fury. So the population got mad when the Jews brought this plague with them. It says, because of the visitation of the plague and the breach of contract on the part of the Jews. So the breach of the contract was the fact that those Jews decided not to get on those ships because they didn't want to die on those ships. They decided to stay in Portugal. So they considered that a breach of contract. It says the king's creed awoke again simultaneously with the awakening of his greed. So when the king caught word of that, then the greedy king, had a new plan. So the new greedy king of Portugal, in this case King John, he came up with a new plan. He says he issued an edict which threw even that of Torquemada into the shade. So basically it says, when the greedy king heard that the Jews had breached their contract and that they were still there and that that the plague was breaking out because of them, then he came up with an even a worse edict or a worse decree than the one that was before. So this is what he came up with, and this is the reason why we wanted to bring this reference to light. So if you can pay close attention from here for sure. So look, it says all Jewish children below 14 years of age. I'm going to read this slow. It says all Jewish children below 14 years of age were torn from their parents' arms. Okay, let's think about that for a moment. All Jewish children below 14 years of age were torn from their parents' arms, dragged into the church, baptized. All right, so all the Jewish children under 14 years of age, snatched from their parents, taken to the church and baptized, right? And it says, those under 3 years of age. So those children that were under 3 years of age were given to Christians to receive a Christian education. So I got to stop here. I have to provide just a little bit of commentary. So the babies, the toddlers and the babies. Just want to put it into perspective. The toddlers and the babies were taken from their mothers. and given to the Christians to receive a Christian education. Then it says, or in other words, to be raised as slaves. You get that? It says to receive a Christian education, or in other words, to be raised as slaves. So the toddlers and the babies were taken from these black Jews in Portugal and given to foster parents to be raised as slaves and to be brought up as Christians. Then let's keep reading. It says, those between the age between 3 and 10 years old. So now we're talking about a different age group. So we learned that the toddlers and the babies were given to Christians to be raised as slaves, right? So we know that these are black babies. And then it says, those between 3 and 10 years of age were put on board of a ship and conveyed to the newly discovered unwholesome island of St. Thomas, called the island of perdition, or the island of punishment. All right, I got to add commentary to this as well. So between the ages of 3 and 10, so that would be preschoolers and elementary kids. So that's like taking preschoolers and elementary kids, and then so they took the preschoolers and elementary kids and put them on board of a ship and sent them to the west coast of Africa. Okay? All right. So let's keep reading. It says, which was colonized by Portuguese condemned criminals. And we understood from our previous references that these were condemned criminals from the Inquisition who were also Jews, right? And it says, was colonized by Portuguese condemned criminals to fare there as best they could. So they took the preschoolers all the way up to the elementary kids, took them away from their parents, stuck them on ships, sent them to the west coast of Africa to survive. Okay? It says, then indeed the cup of their affliction was full to the brim. Okay? And I'm just going to pause right here just to point out in Deuteronomy 28. And the reason why I keep going back and forth is because I want you to understand that this was foretold. Like this was prophesied in Deuteronomy 28, and that we shouldn't be surprised that this happened because Israel, our forefathers, broke the commandment with the Most High. And so when we go to Deuteronomy 28 verse 32, it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Let me read that again. And there shall be no might in thy hand. What's significant about that is that if there was might in your hand, they wouldn't have been able to take them out of their hands, out of their arms, right? So if there is might in the hands and the arms of these black Jews, the Portuguese wouldn't have been able to rip those babies, those preschoolers and those toddlers, or actually the infants as well, out of their arms. And also Deuteronomy 28:41, where it says, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So just wanted to point out that this was foretold. This was a byproduct of Israel breaking their promise. But the interesting thing about these references is that it gives a additional detail as far as like how this actually happened and the way it happened. So, all right. So start where we picked up, where we left off. It says, those between 10. I'm sorry, let me back up. I almost lost my place here. It says those between 3 and 10 years of age were put on board of a ship and conveyed to the newly discovered unwholesome island of St. Thomas, called the Islands of Perdition, or the Islands of Punishment, which was colonized by Portuguese condemned criminals and other Jews to fare there as best they could. So the preschoolers and the elementary kids weren't pushed on a boat. I mean, they weren't put on a bus. They were put on a ship, and they were sent to the west coast of Africa. Okay, so then it says those between 10 and 14 years. Yeah, those between 10 and 14 years were sold as slaves. So we just read that in Deuteronomy 28, right? So again, those between 10 and 14, again, we're still talking elementary kids. They were sold as slaves as elementary kids. It says, then indeed the cup of their affliction was full to the brim. It was a stern truth which Lanu uttered when he said, and that's German, we're going to skip that. All right, so at this point, you should understand that the Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa, and you should also understand who put the Jews on the west coast of Africa and who was there, right? So now we have a better understanding of what ages they were when they were placed there, and the conditions that was there when they were placed there. But let's keep reading because we want to get some additional understanding of how this impacted the Jews. So I'm going to go back to the bottom of the page. It says the Jews have experienced fully the unequal skills of the church in administrating pain. Mothers cast themselves at the feet of the tyrants and pitifully begged to be taken with their babies. They were heartlessly thrust aside. Get out of here. Hundreds of mothers, mad with despair, ran behind the ships. Can you imagine that? Mothers running behind the ships as they carried off the idols of their heart and perished in the waves. So mothers were so mad with despair of losing their newborns, their babies, their elementary kids, that they ran behind the ships, jumped in the water, and swam after the ships, only to perish in the waves. It says the serene fortitude with which the exile people had borne so many. Go to the top of the page here. So many and such grievous calamities gave way at last and was replaced with the wildest paroxysms of despair. It says piercing streaks of anguish filled the land. Childless and brokenhearted, they now sought to leave the land, but they were told that they had forfeit their right and were given the choice between baptism and slavery. So basically, because again, these were Jews that came from Spain and Portugal, when they heard that the Jews that were leaving Spain, that they were being killed, that they were being dumped on the west coast of Africa, and they chose instead to take their chances in Portugal. And then when they stayed in Portugal, King John at the time gave a edict or command to have their children taken away from them and then sent to Africa. So then after the children of these black Jews were taken away from them, then the parents looked to leave. They wanted to leave that place, but then they couldn't go. Then the Portuguese said, no, you missed your date. You missed the time to get out. So now that you're stuck here in Portugal, you got two choices. You can either be baptized into Christianity, or you can go into slavery. Those were the two choices. It says, thousands, after enduring all that they did, after leaving their beloved Spain and all their wealth and ease. And I do want to point out that these Jews were wealthy when they left Spain. But here, in Portugal is where you begin to see them separated from their wealth and separated, and the children were separated from their parents, which was the beginning of the Jews being separated from their history, right? So the Jews were being separated, these kids were being separated from their parents, separated from their history, and being raised to be something else. So instead of being God's people, the children of Israel, they were raised to be something else. And at this point, I do want to kind of insert I call it a supposition, or my belief here is that the so-called African American are the children that were taken away from their parents. And that's why the so-called African American, that the reason why they don't have their full history is because they were raised to be something else. So let's get back on topic. So let's see here. It says, thousands, after enduring all they did, after leaving their beloved Spain and all their wealth and ease, submitted to baptism now. They said, all right, you know what? You got us whooped. You took our children. You took our babies. I'll be a Christian. I'll do it. You can baptize me. It said, in the hope of reuniting with their children. So that's why they did it. They said, look, you took my kids. I'll be a Christian. Just reunite me with my babies. Right? So let's keep reading. It says, thousands were sold as slaves. Thousands were sold as slaves. So thousands of these black Portuguese Jews were sold as slaves. Yet, prior to their being sold, they were submitted to tortures, cruelties, outrageous, too revolting, too repulsing, too heartrending to be here narrated. So this author is basically saying that before they were sold as slaves, bad things happened to them, and these bad things were so bad that he can't write them down. He doesn't want to write them down in this book. That's what he's saying. It says, terror seized upon the native Portuguese Jews. It says, when they helplessly beheld the cruelties to which their Spanish brothers were subjected. And it's interesting that it was the Spanish brethren that were subjected to these. So the initial wave of children that were sent to the west coast of Africa were the Spanish Jews. So remember, they were kicked out of Spain, they came into Portugal, and then the King of Portugal said, you guys can come in on your way out to Africa. So, also want to point out the fact that so-called African American, one of their names was Negro, which was the Spanish name for black. Did you get that? So-called African Americans were called Negro, which was the Spanish name for black. And if you ever wondered, why were you called the Spanish name for black? Well, you can begin to see it here. It was the Spanish Jews that came into Portugal, and it was the Spanish Jews, their children, that were sent to the west coast of Africa. So, now you should see all the pieces of history begin to fit back into place. Okay? All right, so let's see here. I think there's some more information here at the bottom. It goes on to say that, King John II eventually dies, and his successor, Manuel, came to the throne, ascended the throne, and that, he ended up marrying, I believe it was Isabella of Spain, and, to join their two kingdoms, so to join Portugal and Spain. And so King Manuel, he had a heart for the Jews. So he wanted to ease some of the things that King John had done. But once he married Isabella, Isabella didn't like the Jews, so she made him continue the expulsion edict. So as you can see, I'm going to skip down here. I'm going to scroll the screen up just so that if you start at the top, it says already he saw himself in the near future king of United Spain and Portugal, and of the entire new world. It says, but Satan stepped between, dipped his pen in gall, and writing the marriage contract. So in the marriage contract, when the king of Portugal and in this Spain, I guess he was the queen of Spain, it was in the contract, the marriage contract, that they kick these Jews out and do bad things for them. It says, demanded as one of the conditions the immediate expulsion from Portugal of all the Jews, both natives and exiles. It says the king hesitated. It said the fanatical daughter of the fanatical parents persisted. So the crazy wife was like, you got to do this. If you want to join our two kingdoms, you got to kick those Jews out. So let's see if I can fast track here. So he planned a strategy. So that, the king at the time, King Manuel at the time, he wanted to give the Jews a break, but his wife wouldn't let him. Let's see here. And let's see, he gave secret orders for the repetition of the atrocious crimes of having all the children under 14 years of age seized from their mother's bosom and father's arms. So at some point, King Manuel gave in. And so then he gave, his order. He's like, all right, we got to get this marriage done. Go and take the children from the parents. Okay. And let's see what happened. It says, and keep in mind, so these were not only the Spanish Jews, but now this included the Portuguese Jews. Okay. So he gave secret orders for the repetition of the atrocious crime of having all the children under 14 years of age seized from their mother's bosom and father's arm, dispersed through the kingdom to be baptized and brought up as Christians. The secret became known. So just make sure we understand. It says, according to this, it says that the Jews that were left in Portugal, they were commanded to take all the children and then send them to the Christian families in Portugal to be raised as Christians. It says, fanatical mothers threw their children into deep wells or rivers. And it reads, mothers were known to take their babies from their breasts and tear them limb from limb, rather than to resign them to Christians. They would rather know the bodies of their children in the graves and their released spirit in heaven than have them adopt a faith into which Satan sent his friends for their... Let me read that again. All right, and keep in mind that this version of Christianity that these Jews are fighting so passionately against is the Roman version of Christianity. Just want to put that out there. Because it's a twisted version of Christianity. So let's read it here. It says, mothers were known to take their babies from their breasts and tear them limb from limb, rather than to resign them to Christians. They would rather know the bodies of their children in the grave and their released spirit in heaven than have them adopt a faith into which Satan sent his friends or their schooling. With all the parents' opposition, the king's order was executed. Many accepted baptism, but not enough to please the king. and to wreak vengeance upon them for thwarting his wishes, he revoked his edict, seized all who had not yet fled, and sold them as slaves. Okay? So that's the end of the third reference. And again, the point of this reference is to give you an idea of what actually happened in Portugal. And this is a good reference to show you the state of affairs in Portugal as the Jews were sent to the west coast of Africa. So just to kind of review what we've learned through these references. So we learned that the Jews were referred to as Portuguese Jews, or black Portuguese Jews. We learned that the Jews that came into Portugal were Spanish Jews, right? Because they came from Spain. And the King of Portugal, he gave them temporary residency. He said, you guys can stay here for 8 months on your way to Africa. And that we learned that for the Jews that made it to Africa, he said that they were being plundered of their goods, that they were being stripped of their clothes and valuables, and that they were being dumped on the west coast of Africa. And that the Spanish Jews that hadn't gone yet, that once they caught wind of what was happening, that they decided to take their chances in Portugal. And that when they decided to stay in Portugal, that's when things went from bad to worse, right? So that's when the king had issued an edict to take the children, from between the ages of 14 years or younger. So the references that we read today talked about the children from 14 years or younger, but we have additional references that shows that he later increased that to include the children, the Jewish children from the ages of the 20s and younger. So it was a lot of children that were taken from their parents in Portugal. These Spanish Jews that were in Portugal, and the Portuguese sent them to the west coast of Africa. And which is why, again, these were Spanish Jews, which is why the so-called African Americans were called Negroes, the Spanish word for black. And we read that they were black Portuguese, right? So, but the twist here is that they were actually the Spanish Jews. So that's why they used the Spanish word for black instead of the Portuguese word for black. So, all right. So now that we've had that, so we'll finish this series here with this last reference, and then what we'll do is that for the next series of videos, we'll move into the color of the Jews, and we'll attempt to explain why today there are two classes of Jews. Why there's black Jews, which are considered the ancient Jews, and why there are red Jews or white Jews. And where they come from, we have to provide some history on that so that you can understand why you have the two sects and where they come from. So we'll look for that, and then from there we'll move into Esau. That's a very important topic for for so-called African Americans, is the history of Esau, the history of Edom. And that goes into the Ashkenazi Jews and some other interesting facts that you really need to know. So again, thanks for watching. If you can, take the time to go ahead and subscribe, and just so that you can get notified of when new videos come out. And have a blessed day, and shalom.
All right, that was woo. That was something, brothers and sisters. When we get to stuff like this, and hats off to Brother Benaya, what I was sharing with you all earlier, that starting this coming Sabbath for the next 5 weeks, you want to have your paper, pencil, your Bible, patience, 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time. we will be simulcasting live. Pastor Boyd from the Israel of God, who's going to be teaching on the Black History Month. 5 lessons. It's a 5-part series. You want to be there. You want to be tuned into this channel. Share, like, hit that notification bell, write it down. We'll be coming sharp. We may be coming maybe a few minutes before that, maybe, but I just want y'all to, at 1 o'clock, we're going to be going live. Maybe 10 minutes till, but just, you want to be tuned in because 5 weeks consecutive, there's going to be lessons that are more substantiated and more informative than what we're seeing now. If you thought this was good, wait till what you're going to see. And every Saturday night during the Black History Month, we're going to be coming up with this series that we have, this special report series. You want to tune in. We'll be here with you every Saturday night all throughout the month of February. I want to show you something. Because there was a lot of, in the chat room, listen, y'all were there with me. I'm a father. Could you imagine a mother? I could not imagine my 10-year-old or any of my children being ripped from my arms. I don't know. This is just something. Let me just show this to you. Because a lot of anger was there. And you get angry, but you know why it happened. See, a lot of times Israel gets mad at who did it instead of not why. Because you can read in the scriptures and the Lord says, I have done this. I caused your children. I will cause your children to be sold. I will cause another to sleep with your wife. But they went too far. Let me show the scripture to you real quick before we get out of here. Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, the prophet. And this is what he said in verse number 15. I want to read this. Verse number 15. Zechariah, the first chapter, verse 15. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to start right there. It says, I am, again, this is Zechariah, the first chapter, and starting with verse 15. I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. This is the Most High talking to Zechariah. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. Meaning they took it too far. And when we read what we read today, what was presented tonight, they took it way too far, brothers and sisters, way too far. And then he says this, therefore thus saith the Lord, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. This is forecasting the future. My house shall be built in it. His house is not built there yet. It will be built. When he returns, his house will be built in it, saith the Lord of hosts. And a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. Cry yet, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and the Lord shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Now I want to read this next part, because Zechariah saw this in verse number 18. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. He sees 4 horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these? And he answered me, these are the horns, or you can say nations, which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Verse 20, and the Lord showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, These are the horns which have scattered Judah. In other words, do you see these nations that have scattered Judah? You want to know what these four carpenters are going to come to do? You see these four nations? Listen to this. These are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, meaning those carpenters. They're going to come and fray them to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. They took it too far. I was a little displeased with Israel. I am very sore pleased with the heathen that are eased, because I was a little displeased, but they took it too far. Way too far. So what we have, brothers and sisters, we have a time that's coming up where we need to be rooted and grounded in his word. We need to take the commandments and bind them about our neck and write them upon the tables of our hearts, so we can find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. This is why Solomon says, and when you are scattered, let me just show that to you real quick. That's what Solomon's prayer was, because he knew. This is what he said in 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. And he wrote it in the book. He wrote it. This was his prayer. And I'm just going to go read just a little bit of that real quick so we can see that. Listen to this. 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. Listen to what he says here. This is Solomon. He says, when he started to pray, he says, if they sin against thee, for there is no man that sinneth not, and you be angry with them, and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives into the land of their enemy far and near. So he says in his prayer, when Israel sins against you, because there's no man that has not sinned, and you're angry with them and you deliver them to the enemy so that they are carried, so that they carry them away captives into the land of the enemy. Listen to this. Verse 47. Yet if they shall bethink themselves, if you come to your senses, if you wake up and say, you know what, I'm in sin. I'm not following the commandments of God. I need to get back to covenant agreement. Yet if they shall bethink themselves in the land whither ye were carried captives. Not only, see, this is where a lot of people don't realize this. It ain't that it's not just coming to the knowledge of who you are. If you shall bethink themselves in the land where you were carried captives, but you got to do this. And repent and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them captives. So you're going to have to do this in the United States. If that's where you were led captives, you're going to have to do this in Australia, Britain, in the Caribbean islands. No matter where you are, if you bethink yourselves in the land whither they were carried captives, and repent and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them captives. Because if you're in captivity, you have no other choice but to come to your senses right here, saying, we have sinned and have done perversely and have committed wickedness, and so return unto thee with all of their heart, with all of their soul, in the land of their enemies. So you can't say, well, you know, when I get out of this country, I'm going to do it. When I get out of captivity, I'm going to do it. No. That's not what it is. You got to return unto him with your heart, your soul in this land, which led them away captive. And when you do that and pray toward their land, that's Jerusalem. It don't matter who's there now, that's your land. When the Lord returns, he's going to set up his kingdom there, which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for my name. After they do that, verse 49 says, then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people that have sinned against thee, and all their transgressions wherein they have transgressed against thee, and give them compassion before them who carried them captive, that they may have compassion on them right here in this land. For they be thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest forth out of Egypt from the midst of the furnace of iron, that thine eyes may be open unto the supplication of thy servant, and unto the supplication of thy people Israel, to hearken unto them in all that they call for unto thee. Wow. Why is that? For thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth to be thine inheritance, as thou spakest by the hand of Moses thy servant, when you brought them, our fathers, out of Egypt, O Lord God. And it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication unto the Lord, he arose before the altar of the Lord, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread up to heaven. And he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be the Lord that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant. The Lord our God be with us, as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments, and his statutes, and his judgments, which he commanded our fathers. And let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require, that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God, and there is none else. Let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments, as at this day. So you see, brothers and sisters, this is what we're supposed to be doing. But yet we're fighting and we're debating and having dialogues with Hebrews who have not even woken up. And no matter what evidence you show them, they still don't see. But yet somebody put in here, it's amazing how the other nations know who we are, but we don't know who we are. But yet we are waking up. And this is why for this month, for the next 5 weeks, you will be getting blessed with lessons every Sabbath at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in, like, share, invite people to your home, have a Bible, offer them snacks, sit down, tell them to get there at 12:30, because you know Israel is always late. Tell them to be there by 12:30. Maybe they'll be there by 1. And have snacks. Let them you're going to be tremendously blessed. Next Saturday night, we'll be here also. So thank you for tuning in tonight, brothers and sisters. I've enjoyed my time with you. We're going to be playing a couple songs and getting on out of here. Thank you for our moderators that were in the room tonight. Thank all of you that were in our room tonight. We got quite a few inside the chat room. But all good things must come to an end. But we will be back. And don't forget to share that information with others. Peace and blessings to you. And we will see you next week. Now, don't forget. Oh, don't forget, I'll be here tomorrow night. We'll be here the rest of the week. But this special report won't be until next week. All right. Peace and blessings to you all for real this time. God bless you.
This song goes out to the people in the world. They need to hear this song right here. Cause if they don't heed to this warning, I'll hate to be them on Judgment Day. Look at all this evil crime. World is on a decline. The world is about to catch this heat. Cause destruction's about to repeat. Instead of living all their lives, people going crazy online. Great post. They got no love or hate. All they wanna do is spread slander all day. So look around the world. Many dying every day. Yeah, they knew the way to live, but they didn't live that way. No excuses. And they died all in their sins, without a sacrifice. So won't you send this warning out to the people still alive? Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't read, won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't repent. The church. Everybody doing what they wanna do. They don't really care, they don't want the truth. They just wanna play religion like the fool. So divided they can't tell you what they gonna do. Engineers, man, they don't endure the truth. Engineers, they don't got a clue. Paganism, man, it gotta go before the Christ comes. And you hear these words, depart from me, I never knew you. You who break God's laws, and you die all in your sins, without a sacrifice. So won't you send this warning out to the people still alive? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't read, won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't read. Hope y'all listening. Yeah, this is life or death. This world is gonna burn in the fire. Yeah, nowhere for you to run in the fire. Yeah, but if you just repent before the Father, believe in Christ who'll save you from the lake of fire. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't read, won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. Won't you tell them? Tell them whoa. To the souls. If they don't read. but what I got is greater than anything you've ever seen. If you know what I mean, I've got the living water. I promise you'll never thirst again. 6 days for the planner. Eat it before it's too late. There's been something on my mind. I've gotta let the whole world know. For so long, I've been walking blind. I'm so glad now, 'cause I can see His mercy went before me. Least I can do is to sacrifice myself. I ain't got no money, but what I got is greater than anything you've ever seen. If you know what I mean, I've got the living water. I promise you'll never thirst again. 6 days for the planner. Eat it before it's too late. Oh, I don't need no fancy car, no need for a mansion, no fancy clothes, 'cause all I need is you in my life to give me peace of mind. Shalom is hard to find in the midst of unrighteousness. Oh, I ain't got no money, hey, but what I got is greater. Oh, yes it is, than anything you've ever seen. If you know what I mean. Oh, I've got the living water. I promise you'll never thirst again. 6 days for the manna. Eat it before it's too late. I got no money, but I've got something greater. Oh. Real